What is up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over the fights to make after UFC Saudi Arabia. So obviously UFC Saudi Arabia happened a couple days ago. The main event was Ikram Alexpereira versus Robert Whittaker, and the winner was Robert Whittaker. So let's do Whittaker versus Sean Strickland. I think they both deserve a title shot right now, but with the way the middleweight division is, you have Dricus du Plessis and Isrealadesanya fighting in 2 months for the middleweight title. So let's say Strickland fights the winner of that. He has to wait all the way till probably January, February. Then Whittaker has to wait till probably all the way summertime to fight the winner of that. And we don't want to see Whittaker sit out for a whole year. So what I say you do is UFC 295. Right now, it looks like the co-main event Song Yadong. Come on, UFC, you could do a better co-main event for that. 5-round co-main event. Sean Strickland, Robert Whittaker. They can Sean Strickland, Izzy, Dricus, Whittaker all can be at the same press conference. That would be sick. It would be entertaining. And Sean Strickland, Robert Whittaker. This can make possibly one of the clearest #1 contenders we've ever seen. It's a great #1 contender fight. It's a matchup that we haven't seen in the middleweight division. I'm surprised that these guys haven't fought yet at some point, but now's the time to do it. It makes sense, and it's a great #1 contender fight. But moving on, Ikram Aliskerov. Now, Ikram Aliskerov's in an interesting situation right now because he just fought the number 3 contender, and yeah, he didn't really deserve that fight. I think most people agree he didn't deserve the fight against Whittaker, but due to circumstances and Khamzat pulling out, and they needed to find an interesting main event for Saudi Arabia, right? They called up Ikram. Ikram accepted, and Ikram had a little bit of hype around him, so it was an interesting build-up. But Ikram got chinned in 2 minutes. So what do we do with Ikram now? Now, people could say, Whittaker's one of the best guys. That's who he lost to. So let's give him someone maybe like a Chris Curtis or Michelle Pereira, Anthony Hernandez, someone in the lower half of the top 15. But he did just fight inside the rankings with no ranked wins, and he failed. He had one shot at the rankings and he lost. So let's give him a fight to get him back on track a little bit. Andre Muniz, Ikram Aliskerov was scheduled to fight Andre Muniz, but Andre Muniz pulled out. So let's reschedule the fight. Andre Muniz is right outside the rankings. He's somewhat close to being ranked, and it's a good fight to get Ikram back on track. If Ikram wins this one, he could get another shot at the rankings, and he can build a little bit of hype around his name. He'll prove himself that he's a solid middleweight contender. Apart from Whittaker, Andre Muniz is definitely better than Morley Alves and Phil Hawes. So if he beats Andre Muniz, if Ikram beats Andre Muniz, that'll be the best win Ikram has so far. It's a decent test for Ikram, but not too tough. It's definitely a very winnable fight for Ikram. And for Andre Muniz, it's a way to put a little bit of hype on his name, because Andre Muniz is coming off a decent win, I think, right now. And Ikram, obviously, he got knocked out by Whittaker, but just being in that main event, filling in for Khamzat, that put a lot of eyes on him. So a lot of people do know who he is. And if Andre Muniz gets a win for him, over him, that's big for his career. So yeah, run this fight next. Maybe like a co-main event to a fight night. But moving on to the next fight, Alexander Volkov looked great against Sergey Pavlovich. He won every round of that fight. I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to win. I thought Sergey Pavlovich would run through him in like 3 minutes, but man, Sergey got fraud checked. People say Sergey getting knocked out by Aspinall was him getting fraud checked a little bit, but man, this was really the nail in the coffin. Volkov fucked him up. But what do we do with Volkov? I say you give him the winner of Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades. Now, if John Jones actually grows a pair of balls and decides he wants to fight the interim champion instead of a number 6 ranked old man, then we could do the winner of Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades versus John Jones. But realistically, John Jones is going to fight Stipe and retire. The winner of Curtis Blades and Tom Aspinall are going to get promoted to the undisputed champ. And then who are they going to fight for the first title defense? I say the winner of Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades for the first title defense can rematch. They can rematch Volkov. Volkov, he's on a 4-fight winning streak, I think, right now. He's coming off some good wins. He's looked very good recently. He's well-rounded. His grappling is a little iffy, but he has great striking. And yes, he did lose to both Aspinall and Curtis Blades, but he's looked very good recently. And obviously, apart from Aspinall and Curtis Blades, he deserves a title shot. So yeah, if Aspinall and Curtis Blades are the champion, I say you give Volkov a title shot against them. Give Volkov a chance to get one of these wins back, and most likely Aspinall is going to beat Curtis Blades. So after John Jones retires, Aspinall versus Volkov 2 is a decent fight to me, man. I think that's a decent fight, and I think Volkov arguably deserves a title shot right now. So yeah, this is a decent fight. You could run this maybe early next year. But moving on, Sergey Pavlovich, he got fraud checked. He got double fraud checked. The Aspinall fight, it was a little bit of a fraud check, but it was short notice. Aspinall is really good. But getting 30-27 by Volkov, who you were apparently fucking beating the shit out of in sparring, that's embarrassing. So I think Sergey Pavlovich is back to fighting fatties now. He's back to fighting the fat idiot to the division. And yeah, Marcin Tybura, Sergey Spivak, they're fighting on a fight night soon. So I say you do Sergey Pavlovich versus the winner of this fight. Sergey Pavlovich did prove in the Curtis Blades fight that he has decent takedown defense. So he should be able to defend the takedowns from both of these guys and finish them. But man, Sergey's looked pretty mid recently, so you never know. Maybe one of these fat asses can fucking submit him. But this is a fight that makes sense next, I think. And Sergey Pavlovich has to fight a couple slots down the rankings. The winner of this fight, the winner of Sergey Pavlovich, or Sergey Spivak and Marcin Tybura, will be coming off a decent win, so they could get a fight up the rankings. Rankings-wise, it makes sense, and Sergey Pavlovich definitely should have a step down in competition. So yeah, this is a decent fight. But moving on, so Kelvin Gastelum is coming off a win when he weighed in 15 pounds overweight and posted Kelvin. First, I'm just going to complain about Kelvin Gastelum a little bit. This guy, a month before, was posting videos of his fucking fat ass eating tacos. You have one of the hardest weight cuts coming up, so you're eating tacos, and then you show up like a fat fuck, and then you lay on your opponent. Bro, what was that? But anyways, so we don't really know what's going on with Kelvin Gastelum right now. He could fight at middleweight, he could fight at welterweight, but that's why let's do Kevin Holland versus Kelvin Gastelum. Because Kevin Holland is kind of in the same spot. He doesn't know if he wants to fight at middleweight or welterweight. He could fight at either weight class. So whether Kelvin Gastelum fights at 185 or 170, I think this fight makes sense. So yeah, next fight, let's do Kelvin Gastelum and Kevin Holland. This fight probably could have happened a couple times. I'm surprised this fight hasn't happened yet. It would be an interesting striking matchup. And yeah, I think it would be a fun fight. I think it would be a very fun fight. Two fun fighters. One of them's a fat fuck that doesn't like making weight. But yeah, it would be a fun fight. Alright, so moving on to the next fight, Daniel Rodriguez versus Santonabio Ponzinibbio. So Daniel Rodriguez and Ponzinibbio are both coming off of losses. Ponzinibbio is coming off a loss to Kevin Holland, and Daniel Rodriguez is coming off a loss against Kelvin Gastelum. So both of these guys are coming off of losses against somewhat decent fighters. And yeah, I think it makes sense for both of these guys. They were supposed to fight like a year ago, I think. They were scheduled to fight, but one of them got tested for drugs or something. But yeah, this fight makes sense. I think it'll be an entertaining matchup. I think it'll be a fun matchup. I think they're both in similar fights in the career, similar spots in their career right now. I know Santonabio Ponzinibbio, he has a fight on a fight night in a couple weeks. But win or lose, he could really fight D-Rod. It doesn't really matter if he wins or lose. I think this fight makes sense for both guys. Both in similar spots, entertaining matchup. And yeah, it'll be a solid fight. But moving on to the next fight, Sharipudin Magomedov. He came off a decent win. He looked decent, he wasn't really fighting the best opposition, but he looked decent. And Roman Kopylov is coming off a win also, where he looked kind of mid too. Both these guys didn't look crazy in their last fight, but they're both solid kickboxers, and I think this fight would be really fun on the feet. Sharipudin obviously doesn't have the best takedown defense, and we saw Roman Kopylov wrestle a little bit in his last fight a little bit. So I hope he doesn't try and wrestle fuck Sharipudin. But Sharipudin's really been working on his takedown defense, and he's probably working with Dagestanians, learning grappling a little bit. So I think this fight would mostly play out on the feet, and this would be a really fun fight on the feet right now. Two kickboxers right outside the rankings, a little bit of crazy styles. They both got great kicks. They both got solid hands. And I think it'll be a really fun fight. I think it'll be a nice technical striking battle. And I think this one would be a banger. I think this one would be a very entertaining fight. So run this next. And I think the winner of this fight gets a fight in the top 15. But moving on, Volkan Oezdemir looked great. He looked great in his fight against Johnny Walker. He looked sharp. He looked powerful. I mean, it's not hard to look powerful against Johnny Walker, who has literally no chin. But he looked great. He looked powerful. And yeah, Jan Blachowicz, he's coming off the loss to Alexpereira, the draw to Magomed, which a lot of people thought he lost. So he's not looking great in his career right now. He's getting a little bit older. So I say you give Jan a fight down the rankings against Volkan Oezdemir. Volkan Oezdemir deserves a fight up the rankings right now. He looked really good. He's coming off of 2 solid wins. And yeah, let's do Volkan Oezdemir versus Jan Blachowicz. I think this would be a fun fight. Two power punchers. I think this fight would mostly play out on the feet, and I think this would be an interesting fight, and it's a great win to get Jan back on track. And if Jan wins this, he is in the title picture because his fight against Alexpereira was a very close fight. So if Jan wins this fight, he's definitely in the title picture. And if Volkan wins that fight, that launches him to the top 5. And yeah, if Volkan wins this fight, then he's definitely in the title picture too. So this will be a great fight. I think it'll be an entertaining matchup, and I think it makes sense for both guys. But moving on, man, Johnny Walker's cooked, bro. He's cooked. He's coming off of 2 bad knockout losses. So let's do the battle of the worst chins in the UFC. So let's see who has a worse chin. You know, Johnny Walker, obviously. He doesn't have a good chin. He just got knocked out in like 2 minutes. But Dominic Reyes, he was dealing with the same problem. You know, he was getting knocked out over and over and over. But Dominic Reyes, he got a win for himself. He looked really good in his last fight. So we're gonna give Dominic Reyes a fight up the rankings against Johnny Walker, and we're gonna see who has the worst chin in the UFC right now. And I think this is a good fight, and I think it's a winnable fight for Dominic Reyes to get him back on track. I know Dominic Reyes has a little bit of hype around him right now. People want to see him win, cause you know, it's a sad story, man. He beat John Jones in most people's opinions. He got robbed, and then he just started getting knocked out by everybody. He got knocked out by Ryan Spann. That's just tough. That's just tough getting knocked out by Ryan Spann. But he came back. He got a solid win. Let's give him a shot. Let's give him another title run, right? Johnny Walker will probably be ranked like number 9, number 8, maybe number 10. And for Dominic Reyes, this could shoot him up the rankings. Winnable fight. Winnable fight for Johnny Walker too. 2 chinny guys going at it. This one will definitely be a finish. So, yeah. But moving on, Nasrat Haqparast, or however the fuck you say his name, robbed Jared Gordon. It's sad to see an old 40-year-old get robbed again, but he does have the win on paper. I think he's in off 4 wins right now, Nasrat. So let's give him a big fight. Let's give him Matt Frevola. When I say big fight, obviously for Nasrat, this is a big fight. You know, I think Matt Frevola is a big step up from Jared Gordon, or maybe not a big step up. Jared Gordon is solid, but yeah, Matt Frevola was just ranked. Obviously, he got head kicked by Benoit Saint Denis, so he got pushed outside the rankings. But Matt Frevola is right outside those rankings, and a win over Nasrat, who's a solid fighter on a good winning streak right now, could get him back into the rankings. You know, I think this is a very fun fight. 2 strikers. You know, you got Matt Frevola, a big power puncher. Nasrat, you know, he's a solid striker too. I don't know about power. He doesn't really got a lot of power, but he's got some power. He's got pop. But this will be a fun fight, solid fight. 2 guys right outside the rankings. The winner of this probably gets a fight in the top 15, and I think this will be a fun matchup. Makes sense for both guys. And yeah, but moving on, Jared Gordon, he's in a tricky situation right now because he's coming off of 2 robberies recently. You know, the Paddy Pimblett fight was a bigger robbery. That was a bigger robbery than the Nasrat fight. You know, I think Jared Gordon definitely won that fight. Then he fought Bobby Green, no contest. He knocked some random out. And then he fought Nasrat and lost a very close decision. So let's give him Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises is coming off a loss right now. 2 older. I don't know how old Thiago Moises is, but he's been around for a minute. So I think he's a little old. Both of these guys are 2 guys that I guess we're trying to work their way back into the rankings. I don't think Jared Gordon was ever ranked, but both of these guys are trying to work their way into the rankings. You know, they're both kind of close, but it's just a couple losses fucked them over. And for both of these guys, I think a win over each other would be great for each other's careers. And yeah, run the fight next to make sense. But moving on, Rick Knott. So Rick Knott won a split decision over Dalby, and it was a pretty competitive fight. It was a decent fight. Rick Knott just hasn't. He was knocking everybody out, finishing everybody, and then he's just been going to draws, split decisions, and he's kind of fucked himself over because after his win over Kevin Lee, Rick Knott was ranked. He was a ranked fighter. Then obviously he had the draw, the welterweight division changed a little bit. He got kicked out of the rankings. Then he got the fight with Nicholas Dalby, and he had a split decision. So he is coming off a win right now. Let's do Randy Brown versus Rick Knott. I think this is a solid fight. 2 guys right outside the top 15. The winner of this 100% gets a fight inside the rankings. So if there was a 16 and 17 slot, it would be either of these guys. These guys are as close as the ranking to the rankings as you can get. So yeah, run this fight next. Nicholas Dalby versus Rick Knott. Solid fight. Winner gets fight in the rankings, and yeah, I think this fight makes a lot of sense. You know, I don't think it's a hot take saying this fight should happen next. But moving on to the last fight of the video, Alexi dos Santos versus Nicholas Dalby. Nicholas Dalby's coming off that close fight against Rick Knott. Alexi dos Santos had a draw with Rick Knott. Now, I know these guys fought a while ago, but it was a split decision. It was a competitive fight. These are two guys that, they're kind of far from the rankings. They were pretty close to the rankings, but their losses set them back a little bit. So I think this fight makes sense right now. I think this fight makes sense, and winner can get back on track. I think both of these guys are a little bit older, and yeah, I think it makes sense for both of their careers. I think it'd be a fun matchup, entertaining matchup. Run this matchup next, but let me know what you guys think about the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. Peace out.